morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 4 and episode number. I have no idea because I was doing something immediately before going on air and I didn't think of it. So 370. I am going to guess it is 5 because on a Monday it's either a 5 or a 0. So 375 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. Yeah. Today, recording day is Monday, May 6th, 2024. And here at the Ottawa Beaver Lodge, it looks like it's going to be a beautiful day because I see plenty of blue sky and I see some sun reflecting off some buildings. So it looks like it's going to be a nice, bright, sunshiny day here. I'm
Should
your
be
host.
21.
Okay, warm, bright, sunshiny day here. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A. And with me, as always, as you can hear, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast's founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. We have our usual Monday show for you, I believe, unless Mr. Grizzly has to go in early. But
No,
before we
we're
do
good to
anything
go.
else,
We're good to go.
okay, excellent. Let's ask Mr. Grizzly how his mental health is doing today, sir.
Let's just say, I woke up. I was tired because, it's morning and I'm not a morning person. So I took Ms. Lola out and Bridget was out with me and we were walking through the park. And I had just did something on my phone. And as I'm putting my phone back in my pocket, I was not paying attention to the dog who suddenly her leash slipped out of my hand and off she bolted. Mind you, we were in Jack Purcell, so there's fences everywhere. It wasn't a fenced-in area per se. Like there's a gate at each end, but there's giant fences all around. So I sort of had her cordoned, and she was just running back and forth. And I thought, okay, I got her trapped between this building and a fence. She can't get by me. So when she went to run by me, she sort of hit me, and I just grabbed her leash because her leash was still on. Like she didn't lose it; she just got away. So that was a bit of a wake up to my morning. And a little bit of excitement for Ms. Lola this morning. She loved it. She's like, "Hey, playtime, playtime." I was like, no. You can only do that in a completely enclosed area where you won't run away because you'll follow a scent and just track it for days. So, and when I'm chasing her, it's a game. It's just a game to her, right? But she has an air tag on her, so if I had to, if she was able to get away, I'd just grab my phone and find her. But
Right.
the concern is she's an idiot when it comes to cars. Like an idiot. Some dogs are afraid of cars, will sit and like she loves to go for a ride in cars, loves to go for a car ride. But when she sees them on the street, she'll walk out in front of them if I don't pull her back. So
Oh my.
the fear is,
Yeah.
the fear is.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeez, yikes.
Yeah. So that was my morning excitement.
All right. No excitement in my morning, which is quite okay with me.
Mm.
It is, of course, the day after Orthodox Easter. If anybody was observing, I hope you had a wonderful time. My Beaver sweetie was. He was in Toronto with his family, and yeah, judging by the pictures, everybody had a splendid time. So there you go.
Excellent.
Um, we'll start with some good news. It was a big sports ball weekend all over the place. There
Yes.
was qualifications for basketball, 3-on-3. The Canadian women's team are the world champions. There was an 8-team tournament going on, and they absolutely had to win in order to get an Olympic qualification spot. There are 8 spots, and I think 4 of them had already been determined. So this was to get another one, and Canada did make it to the final, but was defeated by Australia, which was the only team that had also defeated it in the regular play. A second place finish, very well played tournament. The wheels kind of fell off in the last 3 or 4 minutes of the match, but there's another chance later this month, I think, at a tournament where the top 3 in that one, I think, punched their tickets. So it's definitely not over yet. It was just this was an opportunity to get it all secured a little early, but they'll be playing again. There was also in track and field, there was an event this weekend going on in the Bahamas that was just relays. Nothing else, just relays. It seems that there's this type of contest that goes on every Olympics. A whole bunch of countries come, and I think there are 14 entries for each of the 5 relays that they have. So the two 4x100 meters men's and women's, 4x400 meters men and women's, and then the mixed 4x400, and all the nations come and they relay. Um, well, Canada had entries for all 5, and on the first night on the Saturday, by finishing top 2 in their heats, the men's 4x100, the women's 4x100, and the women's 4x400 all qualified for Paris. The 4x400 mixed and men's had a second chance the next night. Unfortunately, they did not meet the standard. There might be a backdoor chance through rankings for 2 more teams to get in. I don't know where we rank, but nobody was talking about it during the broadcasts, so it doesn't seem that that's a viable entry. But we will have 3 teams in Paris, and then they raced finals, and the 4x100 team, which is the same team that won gold when they last competed, they finished second, so that's good. The women's 4x400 team took bronze. No, 4x100. Ah, I might be mixing them up, but one of the 2 who took bronze, and then the other one was 4th by something like 6/100ths of a second. So not only did the 3 teams qualify, these are 3 teams that are medal contenders.
Mm.
So we might have a lot to look forward to from the track when it comes to the Olympics. So that was pretty exciting. Then Felix Auger-Aliassime, who we talked about last week, was in the final of his first ever 1,000 level tournament uh, on the ATP. There's about 9 of them on the calendar year, and it was on clay. And he was playing Andrei Rublev, who was seeded number 7th. Auger-Aliassime wasn't actually seeded because he's coming back from injury, so he was just outside the top 32, I believe, when the tournament came up. But he had a really weird path because he had one person bow out before the match started, and then the next one, someone pulled out at 3-3, uh, or at one early in the match, and then the next match, someone pulled out at 3-3. So he sort of like got 3 walkovers all the way to the final. It was a very exciting final. Unfortunately, he lost trying to get to a tiebreak in the 3rd set with a double fault. So it was kind of a womp womp ending, but a very, very, very good fight and his toughest match and his best result since he's been coming back from injury. Now he brings him to like something like 21st in the world or something. So now he's really ranked well, I think, within the top 32, and that will be good for the French Open that's coming for his draw there. Um, then there was the World Under 18 Men's Boys Hockey Championship, and Team Canada won gold, defeating the USA. And then, if that wasn't enough, a gentleman named Taylor Pendrith won his first ever PGA tournament, and he's Canadian. We got to the last hole, and there were two players that were tied going into it, and one person, unfortunately, it was par five for them, actually bogeyed the hole, and he was the only person to bogey the whole tournament long.
Hmm.
Taylor Pendrith sunk his putt and first time PGA champion. So it's again, I know we've mentioned it on the show at one time, but it's like when I think Mike Weir won a PGA tournament, like we're not even talking the Masters yet. I think, I mean, it was very rare, and now we have Canadians winning tournaments several times a year.
Mhm.
Like, I don't. Golf has really taken off in this country.
Well, a lot of times what'll happen is they will get a scholarship to a U.S. university where they have like competitive golf teams. I know there's a woman I used to know years ago who she went to, I think, UPenn on a golf
Mhm.
scholarship, and I'm like, that's a thing. I had no idea that was a thing. Yeah, she went to she had a full ride to play golf. I'm like, so that's better than a football scholarship because you're not beating the hell out of your body the same way.
Right?
But yeah, a lot of Canadian golfers on the Pro Tour right now have gone to school in the U.S. on a golf scholarship or played on the university golf team, which has
Mhm.
resulted in improvement in their skill set.
Mhm, and so similar for tennis now. There's, competitive tennis is really big,
Same
even
thing,
in
yeah.
Canada.
Oh yeah.
Tennis Canada just had their recent numbers out because they do a survey. And apparently, it's like 1 in 4 kids right now under 13 or something like that have played tennis in the last year. Like a quarter of kids, apparently tennis is like the number 4 sport in Canada right now in terms of participation and enrollment.
I
It's
didn't know that.
yeah, and it's all the same thing now. College tennis is like a huge, huge thing in the United States, and so all the generation that's coming up right now with the Gabriel Diallos and Alexis Galarneau and uh,
Mhm.
Liam Drexel, and these are all names that you're going to hear. They've all gone through that. They're going through that system.
Well, I
Um,
think a lot of it might have to do with parents are just like, I don't want my kids to play football or hockey because they don't want them to get hurt. So they'll put them into a non-contact sport like that, where sure you can blow your knee out, blow your ACL, whatever, but it's not your likelihood of getting multiple concussions throughout your career is pretty darn slim. It's
yeah.
not impossible. It's not impossible, but pretty darn slim.
hmm Yeah. Exactly. So but the golf. I mean, I remember back in the day when we got the newspaper at home all the time, and then you'd go to the sports section, and then you'd go like to the place that was like little classified columns where you'd get all the results
Mhm.
like this, and you'd look at the golf, and you'd see, and everybody was competing for this thing called Q School because you wanted to get your ticket to Q School because that was that big tournament. And if you finished within the top whatever like this, you got your card to compete on the PGA
Right.
tour. That was before we had all like these these 12 and 13 other tours all around the world. Now there's like PGA South Africa and PGA Japan, and there's Corn Ferry tour and the Champions Tour. But there are so many tours now. But when there
Mhm.
was just the
One.
PGA and maybe the seniors, and that's it. That was a big deal. You
Oh
know,
yeah. Yeah.
and when that would like make the news every year on the sports. It's like it's Q School time, and we've got 6 Canadians. Let's see if someone gets their card this year. And so many years it was like, nope, nobody. And then like one out of the 6 did, and it's like, yay! We have somebody to report on next year. So yeah, but yeah, he won, and I think like last year it was Nick Taylor, and then Stephen Ames is winning stuff a lot on the Champions Tour and all that. So I mean, like I said, there's something with our. I think also golf now being an Olympic sport probably has a lot to do with that as well.
Oh, yes, I'm sure it does.
Yeah. So that because tennis as well, that was a more recent addition. I think golf is more recently added. It was there originally, actually,
Mhm.
or early on for a while, like near 1910 or 1920 or something like that was in, and then it was pulled. But and so was tennis actually back then. And so those are two old school sports that they actually brought back to the Olympics. All right,
Tiddlywinks was an Olympic sport at one point.
was it really?
Yes, I'm not joking. It was legitimately an Olympic sport at one point in time.
I think bridge was once as well.
Yes, as was ballroom dancing, I think, too.
Yeah, ballroom dancing, they're bringing it back. They're
They
calling
are
it
bringing it back, yeah.
something.
Yeah. Well,
But
they're
yeah,
also having
and
a
breakdancing.
breakdancing, yeah, popping
Yeah,
and locking and breaking, and hey, look, that shit is super athletic, so, yeah, I think that one makes sense.
yeah, absolutely,
And ballroom dancing is figure skating, but without skates,
pretty much.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Ice dancing specifically,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? Yeah. So, but yeah, tons of Canadians making us proud. Good results. Lots to cheer about. Oh, also Rebecca Marino at tennis got to a doubles final in Japan as well. They also won the silver medal. Let's call it that way. But again, it was one of her best results, I think, in a while as well, because she's coming back from injury as well. So very positive stuff from our athletes. In news, uh, oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Mhm. I know.
Well, first of all, there's been a shitload of news.
Yeah.
Pardon my language, uh, but I think we signed off on Friday, and then it was sort of like, oh, there are 3 arrests
Yes.
in the assassination of
Hershey,
uh,
Niger.
Hardeep Singh Nijjar. I was going to say Harjit, and it's like that's the Minister of Defense, Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Um, Now this is interesting because if we rewind the tape and we remember how this went down, the Prime Minister, we found out, or the Government of Canada, we should say, had let the Government of India know that there were some issues. All the diplomatic back channels one would reasonably expect to be used were used. All the protocols were followed. Everything that needed to be said behind closed doors so as to not wash dirty laundry out in public and to allow all nations to save face was done. But it would appear that the government of India balked. Now, the government of India is led by a man named Narendra Modi. He is someone to whom uh, then Ontario Progressive Conservative Party leadership candidate Patrick Brown was reported to have a close friendship and good ties. I don't know what the state of that is anymore. Um, and now, through other reporting that we have found out, it seems that may have been some interference of some kind that would have transpired in the most recent Conservative Party of Canada leadership race to um, bar access to members of the government of India for one candidate and grant it to another. And the reason why I said earlier that I do not know what the status of Patrick Brown's friendship with Narendra Modi is because Patrick Brown is the one who was blocked. Not sure what happened there. Or it could have just been Big Daddy Steve. because Stephen Harper is the chair of the IDU, and India is an IDU country, although they were kind of removed from the website when this whole thing kind of happened. So Big Daddy Steve gave that order, I'm sure, because it wouldn't be the first time he had things erased from websites.
Nor will it be the last.
Right, climate change, people? You know what I'm talking about. So, yeah. And then the Indian government made a big stink out of it. And we all know what happened on that side. But in Canada, the reaction of the leader of His Majesty's official loyal opposition doubted the Prime Minister when the Prime Minister took a moment in the House of Commons, the House of the People, to inform the people of the nation that there was stuff going on that was very, 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 very fishy. And that attempts to try to get to the bottom of it were being stonewalled. And in that moment, the leader of the loyal opposition chose to question the veracity of the Prime Minister, thus inferring by doing so that on a matter of such great importance, the Prime Minister would lie and do so in the House of Commons. And then they demanded evidence be released. Evidence that would have led to the arrests. And had that evidence been released on demand, as they asked for, well, maybe there would not have been any arrests. So one has to wonder why it is that the Conservative Party of Canada at that time, one now has to wonder why it is the Conservative Party of Canada at that time, including its leader, publicly put their name and their faces to a request that we would release information that would prevent these people from being arrested. Why did they not want these people arrested?
One would wonder. Might it had to do something with the election of the Conservative leader in that leadership race? Do you think, maybe?
Possibly.
There's rumors of that. There's certainly
Yeah.
big rumors of that.
Right now, anything is just speculation, but one has to wonder why it is that the Conservative Party of Canada publicly requested that the government of Canada take an action that would have made it such that it probably would have been harder or possible to actually make this arrest. Now, if you think, well, if they really did believe that the Prime Minister was lying, then they didn't think they were risking anything now, did they? But given we know that there are back channels now
Mhm.
and coziness and allegedly some footsie, and all those pictures of Prime Minister Stephen Harper, right? Smiling the way he does, um, while glad handing with Modi. Hmm. As you sometimes say, Mr. Crisley, I have questions.
Mhm.
I have questions. So yeah, PP is not having a good past few weeks.
Well, and
And
he's got nobody to blame but himself for that.
yep, and this piece of news is not going to help him. For some reason, he's still climbing in the polls. I don't understand this. Maybe it's one of these things that's going to take some time to, marinate, or because people are just getting ready to go into the summer.
Mhm.
I mean, not into it as much. Um, you never know, but these things often also sometimes, there's one thing and another thing and another thing, and then something happens, and it's like, you know what, that's it, and the bottom falls out. So it could be one of those things as well. Um, but right now,
No,
according to
Trent, that's
the
not what we're seeing.
numbers, the public numbers, according to the public numbers, there doesn't seem to be an impact yet from all of this. Now, uh, this ties in. This news here of the rest ties in to the fact also on Friday, Justice Marie-Josée Hogg, who is presiding over the Foreign Interference Commission inquiry, released the interim report. And there's nothing earth shattering. It seems pretty much in line with that which Governor General David Johnson told us at the time. More details, but pretty much in line with that and consistent. Um, there is, there were attempts, as we know, to try to interfere. How successful they were, um, it's kind of hard to tell.
Mhm.
We don't keep national data on a lot of this stuff.
Yep.
Now, probably, but we haven't. It's not something we used to do. Um, there may have been some boats that were influenced, but clearly the operation was not big enough or able to influence an actual result. Uh, and the sort of overall climate of interference being there uh, is something that we need to address. But the problem is that when we get into the how, when it comes to addressing these matters, no matter who the government is, somebody's going to make the case that somebody's trying to rig the rules to favor themselves, and particularly with the opposition that we have now. Ugh. But these things do need to be addressed.
Mhm.
Uh, Marie-Josée Hogg was also a little bit concerned that there may have been some candidates in 2019 who appeared to be open,
Mhm.
yeah, to engage with foreign interference. Uh, she says, according to this article here, a handful of candidates in Canada's 2019 federal election appeared willing to go along with foreign interference schemes, a federal public inquiry has found. Commissioner Marie-Josée Hogg's preliminary report released Friday concluded that while hostile states attempted to covertly influence the 2019 and 2021 general elections, those efforts did not change which party took power. Hold on. There we go. But it also, whoops, my screen is jumping here. But it also uncovered details about foreign interference operations in Canada, which Hogg called a stain on Canada's electoral process. The efforts include a group of known and suspected affiliates of the People's Republic of China that, quote, worked in loose coordination with one another to advance Beijing's interests. Those actors had direct connection to 11 political candidates and 13 political staff members, some of whom, quote, appeared willing to cooperate in foreign interference related activity, while others appeared to be unaware of such activity due to its clandestine nature. Hogue could not say with certainty whether foreign interference tipped the scales in individual writings, but Hogue's report and the weeks of testimony and dozens of previously classified documents that led to it confirmed, quote, troubling instances where foreign states may have attempted to interfere in Canada's democratic elections. And those include intelligence suggested that those PRC, that's People Republic of China, associated threat actors received financial support likely in the form of two transfers of approximately $250,000 from PRC officials in Canada, quote, possibly for foreign influence related purposes. These funds were transferred via multiple individuals in attempts to hide their origins, including an influential community leader, a staff member of a 2019 candidate, and an Ontario MPP. The money was reportedly transferred in late 2018 and early 2019. The Canadian Security Intelligence Service concluded in February 2023 that China's foreign interference in the 2021 election was almost certainly motivated by the perception that the Conservative Party was taking a hard line on Beijing. The timing of a misinformation campaign in PRC-affiliated media aligned with the Conservative polling improvements suggested it was orchestrated or directed by the PRC. Intelligence suggests the proxy agent of the government of India attempted to clandestinely provide financial support to candidates in 2021 without the candidates' knowledge. Security agencies believe the PRC likely manipulated one of the nomination contests in the Toronto riding of Don Valley North ahead of the 2019 election, and that unconfirmed intelligence reporting suggested the international students were bussed in to support then Liberal candidate Han Dong, potentially with falsified identification documents and perhaps under coercion. All of these instances were concerning, Hogue concludes in a report, even though they did not change which party took power in both 2019 and 2021. That is not to say the foreign interference operations had no impact, however. Quote, interference occurred in the last two general elections and indeed continues to occur frequently. It is likely to increase and have negative consequences for our democracy unless vigorous measures are taken to detect and better counter it, Hogue wrote in her report. In my view, the events named in this report likely diminish the ability of some voters to cast an informed vote, thereby tainting the process. Hogue's report was months in the making after more than a year of the Liberal government resisting calls for an inquiry into foreign interference in the first place. Over 2 months, the Hogue inquiry heard from more than 70 witnesses, including politicians, senior public servants and security officials, diaspora groups, and political staff. It also grappled with a significant amount of now declassified documents and summaries of CSIS intelligence. Despite the significant amount of material and the gravity of the threat, Hogue was under a tight timeline to deliver Friday's interim report. Hogue was upfront with the limitations of her findings. She wasn't able to test the information provided by intelligence agencies or question their conclusions, for instance. The inquiry was also not able to reconcile the at times contradictory testimony from different witnesses or to conclusively name individuals believed to be behind foreign interference operations. Even with those caveats, Hogue's findings are the most conclusive look at the allegations of foreign interference in the 2019 and 2021 elections. Global News was the first to report the alleged foreign interference network, including the connection to 11 candidates with national security sources suggesting some of the candidates were, quote, witting affiliates. PRC is seen to be the main perpetrator of foreign interference in Canadian democracy, quote, by a large margin, according to the report. Broadly speaking, Beijing is agnostic about which party leads Canada, but seeks to aid candidates seen as pro-China. Let me repeat that because the conservative narrative is completely different. Broadly speaking, Beijing is agnostic about which party leads Canada, but seeks to aid candidates seen as pro-China. Any party, if they perceive a candidate to be pro-China, they're there.
Yeah, funny how that works out, huh?
Okay. Foreign interference by the PRC is generally thought to be party agnostic. The PRC does not support any particular party, but rather supports outcomes that it views as pro-PRC regardless of the political affiliation of a particular candidate, the report said. One alleged PRC activity was meddling in the 2019 Liberal nomination in the Don Valley North riding, first reported by Global News. Han Dong, now sitting as an independent MP after stepping down from Liberal caucus, has denied any knowledge about the alleged irregularities. Quote, before the 2019 election, intelligence reporting, though not firmly substantiated, indicated that the Chinese international students would have been bussed into the nomination process in support of Han Dong, and that individuals associated with a known PRC proxy agent provided students with falsified documents to allow them to vote, despite not being residents of Don Valley North, the report reads. The report noted that the information came from a variety of sources and had various levels of corroboration. After the election, some intelligence indicated that veiled threats were issued by the PRC consulate to the students, implying that their student visas would be in jeopardy and that there could be consequences for their families living in the PRC if they did not support Mr. Dong. Dong has denied any involvement in the alleged irregularities, the report noted. In his testimony at the Hogue inquiry, Dong said that if he was made aware of international students improperly voting in his nomination, he would have put a stop to it. Quote, I didn't pay attention to busing international students because I didn't understand it as an irregularity, he said. Dong's campaign manager, Ted Loiko, testified that he too knew nothing about the busload of students. Quote, no quote. CSIS brought the allegations of irregularities to the attention of Jeremy Broadhurst, a senior Liberal campaign official, who in turn briefed the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, on the intelligence in September 2019. Both Broadhurst and Trudeau concluded there was not enough evidence to suggest Dong should be removed as the Liberals' candidate in Don Valley North. And if you had been following our episodes when we showed that segment specifically of the testimony, where the Prime Minister was speaking to that specifically, that how he was getting briefed by Mr. Broadhurst because they were in caretaker mode given the election. So he wasn't getting briefed directly by CSIS, but by a person that each party does this during an election, appoints and is cleared, security cleared, so that they can get information from CSIS and bring it back. So it doesn't look like the intelligence apparatus is favoring any one party during an election, right? Or that the federal government is giving any type of direction whatsoever. Not that it should, on open investigations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that distance is always very important to keep clear. Global News published a story about irregularities in the nomination in February 2023, citing unnamed national security sources. In response, Trudeau defended Dong and attributed the allegations to racism. Quote, one of the things we've seen, unfortunately, over the past years is a rise in anti-Asian racism linked to the pandemic and concerns being arisen around people's loyalties, Trudeau said in February 2023, more than 3 years after being briefed on potential PRC-related irregularities in Dong's primary race. But Hogue noted that the incident and the PRC's alleged involvement point to a larger problem with federal nominations, which are largely handled by the parties themselves with no external oversight. Quote, this incident makes clear the extent to which nomination contests can be gateways for foreign states who wish to interfere in our democratic process, Hogue noted, adding that the inquiry would revisit the issue in the next stage of its work. I called it. When we reported on the show that party nomination rules allowed people that were not citizens and that were below the age of, I think, 18 to vote in nomination races. Hello. That's a tear in the system.
Oh, yeah.
Just waiting to be exploited. That needs to stop, or there needs to be some type of oversight body. And I mean, given the sheer number of Conservative Party, both provincial and federal leadership races that have some type of controversy, like a kamikaze candidate, or ballots being destroyed immediately after the vote, or India,
Yeah.
or all that type of stuff. Yeah, maybe Elections Canada and for the provincial elections bodies should have a little bit more oversight over leadership races in some way. Now, legally, I don't know how you do that because political parties are considered private organizations. So they get to set their own rules. But all it would take is for one or two parties to say, you know what, we will voluntarily agree to have our leadership races overseen by the elections body, and then the question goes to the other ones, why aren't you?
Well,
That might be enough peer pressure.
it all stinks to high heaven.
It really does.
It's not good at all. Well, here Vim says he ripped up the Elections Canada agreement. I think effectively, yeah. I don't know if that's literal, Vim. I don't know if you mean that literally, but effectively he's done that. But
Who?
I mean, really, there's a huge hole there. That's a big, huge hole door. People to walk through, have people who aren't citizens to vote in that election. People who are under the age of 18 being allowed to vote in that election, that's not good.
That's not good.
Good. No.
That's good. No. Yeah. So what she was most seemingly disturbed by was the fact that people, how would I put it? Regardless of whether it impacted the actual result in an electoral district or not, the overall impact of getting Canadians to doubt
The system,
the strength and the security of their democracy was something that she noted. So she's very, very clear that this impact on its own is enough to warrant some action. The report also says an updated bulletin dated December 3rd, 2019, removed the assessment and said instead that the person's relationships and activities were consistent with known PRC tradecraft, which could be expected to be applied to future elections at all levels. But aside from the direct political effects, Hoag's report makes clear that foreign interference disproportionately affects members of diaspora communities in Canada, discouraging them from participating in politics, speaking up publicly, or facing disinformation campaigns if they enter public life. Quote, "These are not just facts that help me to understand foreign influence. They are the lived experience of thousands of Canadians who should have the right to enjoy the same rights and freedoms as other members of Canadian society," Hoag wrote. Foreign interference and transactional repression deny them that right. While all Canadians are victim of foreign interference when it occurs, it would be naive to say that it affects us all equally. So that's a pretty it gives pause, right? Gives pause. So and the inquiry will continue, and she'll be talking to members of the diaspora communities a little more to get more information, and as well as other avenues. But this is the couple of questions that they got in this section is not all that the diaspora communities are going to get. She's going to dig more into this specifically to find out more for the full report. But the whole concept of there being an overall influence. And it's not just during elections. It's all year round. It's all the time. We're soaking in it, right? It's the ocean. We're all sailing in. And that some of us are, because it's happening, are choosing to doubt. That it is happening should not be causing us to doubt more, because it's always been happening. It's getting more and more sophisticated, but that's always been happening. There's already somebody trying to influence. I mean, that's the whole point about spies, right? Spycraft and all that kind of stuff. So, but if we know that it is happening, and if we're building the systems to detect and to call out and the important part for those systems is that they have to have an independence from the government of the day, so that when they are have to when it comes the time one day when we will have the time in an election like happened in France, where there's a piece of news that's about to go viral, and the intelligence service knows that this is news that has been planted, that the first reaction of everybody is, oh, here we go, they're defending or they're running interference, or here's the deep state or whatnot, right?
Hmm.
Because any like I said, when you get political actors who are agnostic, right?
Hmm.
Person, I want the candidate that most likes me to win, regardless of party. You want to have a system that says, well, be careful here, and that not everybody, or that the go-to is that there's not one party that says, oh yeah, this is rigged somehow, because everybody's an equal opportunity target
Hmm.
if the players are agnostic. So this is something that you need if you want the country to work, that parties have to agree to, and then they have to buy in. That when they say it's like Elections Canada, right? If Elections Canada says this is the result, people have to agree that this is the result. We just saw it in the United States. All it takes is for one person to say, "Well, I don't agree. It's the result," and look what can happen,
Yeah.
right? It's by convention. We agree. We all place our trust in that body. That when they say it's the result, it's the result. Well, this needs to be the same thing. We put our trust in whatever this body is. That when they say this is interference, that we take them at their word. It's interference.
Hmm.
So, and I don't know if we have the combination of characters currently to be able to come to that type of agreement, or if we do come to that type of agreement and then live by it.
Well, time will tell.
So that's we need to do some things to take action. This, but you know, when he stood up in the House the other day and got himself ejected, one of his claims, once again, was that the government did not put the IGRC on the banned terrorist list. And as we've mentioned on the show several times, we know that when he was in the government, this was asked of his party by the Liberal Party of the day, and they didn't do it either. He knows why it can't or is not done, and he keeps asking for it. He keeps asking for it. He's been on this kick. The Prime Minister is not doing what he needs to do to keep you safe for a while now. We saw it when that terrible car accident happened on the U.S. side of the border.
The Rainbow Bridge, yeah.
His first question in the House was all geared and loaded that way, that the Prime Minister didn't do what he needed to do to keep us safe because that was a terrorist thing.
But it wasn't.
It wasn't.
It was a tragic accident.
Hmm. But it was the day before some milestone related to the downing of the Ukraine Airlines flight that left
Hmm.
out of Iran.
You've gone on mute
Right?
there, sir.
Pardon, I'm on mute?
Oh, no, you're back. You're back. You're good now.
Okay. Yeah.
You're muted there for a sec.
Sorry. So yeah, when I mentioned uh, the context of that time was, I think it was like the day before some type of milestone having to do with the downing of the Ukrainian Airlines plane
Hmm.
in Iran. And that, not much progress has been made because, well, Iran.
Yes.
Not exactly the most cooperative bunch. Um, and again, because of the lack of progress, the Prime Minister didn't do what he needed to do to keep us safe. This is a drumbeat that he's been, and this is him doing it again here. So It'll be interesting. I'm. This is more intriguing than I thought it would be because I really thought it was going to be just looking through it and it's like, yeah, it's happening and we got to be more vigilant and all that kind of stuff. And okay, maybe we can shore up a couple of things here, but this is um, if some of them may have been witting participants.
Certainly seems that way. I'll be right back. I got to take care of
Yeah,
something. I'll be right back.
that changes a thing or two, and none of this inquiry, and I don't know if it's part of the terms of reference of it, but none of this inquiry is looking into the actual leaks from the national intelligence apparatus, which actually brought this to light. Because, I mean, I know that everybody's interested in all the foreign intrigue and all that kind of stuff, but if we're talking about this, we have to ask all the questions, and one of the questions is, were the leaks motivated by someone who might have been a waiting participant in a foreign interference scheme? Most likely not. Probably not, but not impossible. Not impossible. I mean, if I was doing foreign interference, I certainly wouldn't just be working on nominations. I'd be working at people in the business community and people in media and this. So, yeah, I'd be working on staffers too, right? Multiple points of entry. So it's a question that needs to be asked. It's not a question I hear anybody asking. I'm not sure if the terms of reference of this inquiry are going to go there. Um, and I'm not sure. I mean, I would assume that there's some type of police investigation going in to see if the identity of the leakers could be identified, but I'm not exactly all that sure. I didn't hear much about it back then, and I haven't heard anything about it since, if there is one. And I know that sometimes these investigations are not announced anyway. But there is that question that does remain a salient question: what happened in our security apparatus that these stories got leaked? Why was this drumbeat created in the first place? So, uh, and whether it was for a noble reason or not, um, why was it done this way? And if we're not assuming first the worst of intentions, if it was done this way because this person tried everything else and nobody was listening, then we need to figure out what's wrong in our system, that when somebody actually has something and something that you need to pay attention to, why it is that nobody was listening. And that needs to be fixed because this still shouldn't be the way that these things are done. Right? And if it wasn't that, somebody just decided to go public with it, then then we have to ask the question: is this someone that was genuinely motivated, or was this someone who was influenced to act? In this particular context, it is a salient question. So we have to keep it in mind. All right, kids and cubs, we'll move away from this subject and to another one, which is there's talk in the House of Commons, there's debate and all that type of stuff, and votes that are starting on the budget. And there is some interesting games afoot. Now, we know that the Liberal Party put in the capital gains exemption or inclusion increase in the budget, and that became the most talked about element of the budget. And it's a policy decision, yes, but it's a policy decision that probably, if we're talking pure strategy, pure crass political strategy, that was selected specifically to try to place the Conservative Party of Canada in the cheese stands alone position as the party that is somehow defending uh, tax largesse for the 0.13%. But the leader of the opposition has been very clever in trying to find a way to not address this directly when asked questions. So it appears that the Minister of Finance did something a little clever to try and give him another chance. Taft answered this question directly. According to this article that I have here with me, I believe it's from the Canadian Press, called Poilievre Tight-Lipped on what conservatives might do with capital gains tax changes. You will see what that little move from Minister Freeland is. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is telling business leaders to fight their own battles when it comes to the Liberals' proposed changes to capital gains taxation. But even as he characterizes their plan as an attack, his office is keeping tight-lipped about whether or not his party will vote in favor of it. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, and if you're asking vote in favor, it knows, well, why would he vote in favor? The Conservatives are going to vote against the budget. They've already said that. But
They have.
so fast. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland introduced legislation last week to implement the most recent federal budget that did not include one of its marquee announcements. Instead, the government is expected to table a standalone bill to update the tax system so the wealthiest Canadians and business pay taxes on a greater share of their profits. That means each party will have to stake out a clear position by voting yes or no. So, when they say an omnibus bill, which is either in the bad sense, it's when they throw everything in the kitchen sink into it, stuff that wouldn't pass, but there's something in it that you really, really want, so you pass all the stuff that you don't to get the thing that you want. And then there's the omnibus bills, for example, when they changed same-sex marriage law. Well, that affected a whole bunch of the definition of spouse and a whole bunch of different statutes. So they created this omnibus saying, anywhere where this is referenced, it needs to be replaced with this. And they just changed all the laws at once. That's good use of an omnibus bill, right? But it seems in this case, the omnibus bill being discussed will have everything in it except the capital gains inclusion increase. That one, Minister Freeland is saying, well, it's a change to the tax code specifically, so that needs to be a specific standalone bill on its own. So, Mr. Poilievre, so you not saying that you're going to do anything one way or another on this, but still voting against the budget, and therefore being able to, when you're asked later, say, well, I voted against the budget. But what would you do the capital gains things? I voted against the budget. So
Yeah,
you
that's how
can't do that because Chrystia Freeland is going to make you stand up
Mhm.
and vote specifically. Now, how much do you want to bet that on the day of that vote, Mr. PP is going to be voting remotely?
Damn straight he will. Can't be seen to betray the people that he wants to keep him there. Because it's what he's going to do, right?
Mhm. Now, him telling the business community,
Everybody seems to believe that he's going to vote in favor of the capital gains tax, which is a bit of a surprise. But I've heard from a number of people that they expect him to vote in favor of it. I was like, well,
well,
that's
he's got
going to
to
piss off some
decide who.
people.
Well, those people who are camping by the side of the road,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure they're not in favor.
Of a tax that will never actually affect them.
No. I'm pretty sure they're not in favor of letting the rich off.
Oh, no, definitely not.
It's not like they're
Definitely not.
rolling in it.
Yeah.
Right? This is one of those things, so I'm for your worker, I'm for the little guy, I'm gonna axe that tax. I'm like, well, if you're gonna axe that tax and if you're for the worker and you're for the little guy, then you should be really for the rich paying their fair share now, shouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. So he can't be seen to betray that.
Yes. So he's in two pickles now.
Oh yeah, big time.
With the campus protests,
Hmm.
he's been courting the youth vote, but he's all in on Israel.
Yeah, and the youth are
So
going
so
no.
any youth protesters that are there that was saying, "You know what? Yeah, I have a hard time finding a home, and it's gonna like I'm not sure what my job prospects are, and I'm just yeah, you know what? I'm tired of Trudeau. I'm voting Pierre." Oh, wait a minute, you're all in on this?
Yeah, it's all fun and
Maybe not.
games until
And also these people on the side of the road said, "Yeah, he's good. He talks like he talks to people like me. He understands people like me. Yeah, I hear you, rich people. Yeah, I'm yeah, you should pay less tax than us, especially on passive income." Um, yeah, that's probably not going to go over with that crowd very well either. So there's a reason he can't, just like he can't say, "I denounce Alex Jones."
hmm
We do not follow or listen to what that person says. He keeps on being placed in situations where he can't do what it is that he wants to do. So here, he can't be presenting himself as the champion of the 0.13%, which is why he's trying to take position. But on the other hand, him saying, well, businesses, you're on your own if you want to make this case. Yes, it is an attack, but you're on your own. Um, I'm not sure what that's going to do to donations.
They'll dry up pretty quick. You watch how quickly Max Bernier will hop on that one. I've already been reading a lot where people are commenting that who are dyed-in-the-wool conservatives and will only ever vote conservative are so fed up with Poilievre that they're going to vote for Max Bernier. Well, the People's Party of Canada, because they can't vote directly for Maxime Bernier because they don't live in his riding. But there's people who said they're going to vote PPC in the next election, which means it's just going to split the right vote. Kind of like what happened in Ontario when the left vote was split between NDP and the Liberals, and the Conservatives got in with a majority government, but they really didn't get a majority vote,
Hmm.
the way it worked. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think what'll happen is the right vote will get split. You've got the hard right people that will just say to hell with Poilievre, I'm going with Mad Max. And some people who just won't vote conservative because of what Poilievre has been saying and doing as of late. So I think he's digging himself a gigantic hole that he cannot get out of.
Yeah.
I could
And
be
on this
wrong.
one,
I could
yeah,
be wrong, but I don't
you
think I
could,
am.
yeah. And with the 30 and under vote as well, not only is the his stance on Israel Palestine trouble for him, but this issue also would be trouble for him because I'm sure that university students who don't see when it is they'll be able to get a home are also probably not going to be all keen
Hmm.
on Mr. Peepykins
Yeah.
shilling for the 0.13%. So he's got to choose whether or not he wants votes or whether or not he wants donations.
Which one do you think he's going to go after? I'm thinking it's donations. That's just me.
If he goes
He's
after
got to keep
donations,
his puppet master corporate overlords happy at all costs. Because let's face it, he's owned by them. I mean, my God, his chief strategist Jenny Burns is a lobbyist for Loblaws.
hmm Melissa Landsman is a
Was a
former
lobbyist
lobbyist
for Walmart.
among
So
all the other places for which both of them were lobbyists.
yes, yeah.
Right. Um,
It's all. I'd love to be able to have a flow chart to show who's connected to what. Although it might be confusing because the flow chart would have so many arrows pointing in 19 different directions that all point back to Jenny Byrne and Pierre Poilievre and Galen Weston for the most part.
yeah. Now here they do this. Seems to be a trick that they like here, but common sense conservatives will vote against Justin Trudeau's inflationary budget. Spokesman Sebastian Skamsky said in a statement, "The legislation you were asking about doesn't exist yet due to Justin Trudeau's incompetence, so it's impossible for us to weigh in on the matter."
What? I did.
Legislation doesn't exist. The budget was just tabled. They're going to take the capital gains out part and make a specific piece of legislation yet. So the legislation doesn't exist because of Trudeau's incompetence. Okay, sure, run
There's
with
some
that.
mental gymnastics taking place there.
But again, right? You're gonna vote against the dental program? Well, it doesn't exist yet. You're gonna vote against the farmer care program? Well, it doesn't exist yet. It doesn't
Mhm.
exist yet.
Splitting hairs. Being
Does
petty
it?
and splitting hairs. Like, this is
It's just.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It's
You want to
evasive.
get into something else that's ridiculous? This just came across my feed, and it's laughable. So, Glenn Savoy, he is a cabinet minister in the Progressive Conservative Party of the province of New Brunswick. I'm not sure what his exact position or title is, but in December 2023, he took a pre-Christmas drive to Halifax to get his government-owned Tesla repaired and was allowed to bill taxpayers $54.33 for food, despite the trip being on his own time. The expense claim is contained in. Look, this is really digging here. It's $50 that he expensed on a meal. He was doing government work on his own time. I don't have an issue with that. I really don't. I think they're trying to split hairs here. This is just, and the funny thing is, this isn't Telegraph Journal, which is part of what's the name of the company there? Same as the National Post, same ownership.
Post Media?
Thank you. I was blanking there for some reason. Okay. So this is a Post Media publication. And Post Media is going after a conservative for spending $54 on lunch that he expensed. I'm surprised at that. Pardon?
This is provincial conservative?
Provincial conservative.
Well,
in New Brunswick.
That might be why.
I suppose, but really, $54?
Maybe. Well, hey, Bevoda. Well, it wasn't just $16 orange juice with Bevoda. There was also the limos and the upgrades to the rooms. And
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, he drove to get his car fixed, his government car fixed, and expensed, did it on his own time, expensed the meal because he was working, doing government. Yeah, I know. It's just, and somebody else, I guess, threw up in November 23, he billed taxpayers $747.50 for a Tesla wall connector at his home for his electric vehicle. Well, he should. It's a government vehicle. He shouldn't have to take money out of his own pocket for that, number one. And number two, when he leaves cabinet or leaves position or goes back to private life, that connector will go back into the system and get issued to the next member of provincial legislature. So they're digging for dirt here that I don't see. And they're doing it on a conservative. Now, again, a provincial conservative, but it's just, I don't know, it's weird. I don't think it's anything to get excited about, to be honest with you. $800, between a lunch and a wall charger, and the wall charger will go back into the system. The next member of legislature that gets elected to that riding will get issued the Tesla and the charger. So what is the problem? And again, I understand, he should have paid that out of his own pocket. He was doing government work, though, getting his government vehicle repaired on his own time. So I don't have an issue with it, to be honest with you. Couldn't he afford to buy his own? Sure he could. Does he have the right to expenses? Yeah, he does.
Yeah, but it's one of those things, right? Once the tide turns against you, right? I'm entitled to my entitlements.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Right. We know what that does.
Oh yeah, it'll destroy you.
Most people, just that's not an issue. But when the government starts to get on your nerves,
they'll look for any little thing. And hey, look, I want to bring down Higgs. Don't get me wrong. I want to bring down Blaine Higgs because he's not a good person. But I don't think taking this guy out in the process is what you need to do. Because
not for this.
No,
not for this. But yeah, indeed. Coming back to a little bit what's going on there with this move to single out the capital gains here. according to this article. Skamsky, the spokesperson again for the Conservative Party. It's obvious the Liberals are making up their cornerstone policy on the fly.
Mm.
No, they're not. They're just extracting it from one document and putting it in another and going to table it as an individual piece of legislation. If they were making it up on the fly, they would be trying to hide it. They wouldn't be trying to extract it to single it out for
Indeed.
for particular scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, you're very bad at your job. He added that Trudeau's wealthy friends won't pay a cent more, and working and middle-class Canadians will be on the hook for Liberal spending. Okay, sure. Yeah, okay. I guess that's what you had. Poilievre hinted at his own thinking in a recent opinion piece. He put what he described as the, quote, attack businesses and entrepreneurs are facing at the feet of corporate leaders themselves, writing that their approach of sucking up to Trudeau's Liberals hasn't worked. Quote, they had been planning to do nothing except complain and hope their useless and overpaid lobbyists meet Chrystia Freeland or Justin Trudeau to talk some sense into them, while the opposition hounds the government to reverse course, Pierre wrote last Friday in the National Post. If you want to stop Trudeau's latest tax hikes, don't talk to politicians about it. Talk to the people.
Okay.
My laws are going to be constitutional. If you want to know what they're constitutional, ask the people.
Yeah, my laws. You ever heard a leader of the opposition or a prime minister ever say that before? My laws?
But he's literally saying here, don't ask me to fix your problem. Don't put me in a bind. Don't make me have to make a decision. Go out and influence the people and get the people to ask for it. And if the people ask for it, then I will do it. That's not how you govern.
No.
Standing up on a balcony and going, what do you want today? Okay, you got it.
That's not how it works. Really disturbing.
That's a recipe for disaster, because if you start that, what happens when they ask for something that you don't want to give? If government worked by, hey, I just show up and I ask for something and I get it, the Liberals wouldn't be the government today. Oh, well, a few thousand of you showed up on Parliament Hill en masse, so I guess we'll switch governments.
That seems like a bad idea to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a
But
bad
I mean,
idea.
he's like, said, people, if you ask loud enough, I will give it to you. Ain't I wonderful? My laws will be constitutional because you will approve them. Ain't I wonderful? Oh, do I have any questions for you? No, I'm just going to ask the tax. If you want to ask me about my plan to ask the tax. I have all the time for that, but no, I don't need to ask you anything. I'm here for me. I mean, for you. For you.
Yeah, you. Sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. And a story that just came across my feed from early April that I don't know how I missed this before. But I'll read you the headline and then give you a couple of lines from it, because this is kind of a surprise. And it's the way it's the way it plays out that's really the surprise. This is the Ontario government tells Ottawa woman OHIP won't cover $110 pap test from Apple Tree Clinic. I'm like, what? Well, here's the reason why. As it turns out, the this woman was outraged after being charged $110 for a routine cancer screening test with a nurse practitioner located at the Apple Tree Clinic where she is a patient. She has a family doctor at the clinic, but that doctor had relocated to Northern Ontario. So she was advised to book an appointment with a nurse practitioner for the procedure. When she did, she was presented with a list of fees to her shock. The procedure, which is part of the province's cancer screening program, would have been covered by OHIP if it was done by a physician, or even if it was done by a nurse practitioner who is part of a health team and whose salary is covered by OHIP. In this case, it was done by a nurse practitioner working independently, something she didn't know in advance. Since they are unable to bill for services under OHIP, as doctors can, the service, although it is considered basic primary care, is also considered uninsured by the province, according to a letter she received from the ministry after complaining. So that's a stealth way to privatize primary care. That is greasy. She had no way of knowing this.
Jeez.
Oh man, I'm pissed off at that.
Yeah, those are great. PP offered more insight. Yeah, PP offered more insights on how it is he plans to govern. His opinion piece addressed concerns that professional associations and companies are expressing about the proposed capital gains changes. It said they should raise such issues directly with their patients and employees. Don't complain to me, complain to your patients and employees. Quote, obviously, my future government will do exactly the opposite of Trudeau on almost every issue, he wrote. So, sir, taking kids out of poverty, protecting transgender rights.
Those are problems, huh? I don't see them that way.
Daycare, childcare, dental care. My future government will do exactly the opposite of Trudeau on almost every issue.
Oh, okay. So our services are going to decrease, our costs will increase, and people who are now improving their lives because they have $10 a day daycare, pharmacare, and dental care are going to lose all of those things.
Yep. Poilievre was asked directly in an interview last week whether a future Poilievre government would repeal or keep the capital gains change. He did not specify, saying only that it's still a hypothetical matter. It does not exist yet. He's a one-trick phony. He argued that hiving off changes to the capital gains taxation regime from the budget implementation bills amounts to a flip-flop by the Liberals. How? And while Poilievre didn't lay out what he might do next, he panned the measure as ineffective. Quote, what is clear is that it won't affect the rich because the rich are just selling their assets now before the change takes effect. They're moving their money over to tax havens. They won't pay a penny more, he told Toronto's CP24. Well, then, you don't need to worry about it now, do you?
Apparently not.
Right? If we're not going to get a cent more and everybody's just going to move their stuff, then we don't need to worry about it, right?
Clearly.
So then you should be able to say what your position is, right? Right? This is just, oh, this guy.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Grizzly, do you have anything else?
Well, I do want to make a brief announcement. If you look at the scrolling Chiron right now, I will going to put in a new QR code here for you as well. Give me a second, and that won't let me do it because it's too long. Oh, anyway, well, we have, and I put a link in the chat there. We do have an Etsy store now, and I will share it on screen here in just a second. We just started our merch store, basically. It's been a long time coming, but it's taken a little while to get organized on my end because, life can get busy sometimes. And here it is. So it is live now. The live merch store. You can see a couple of... Oh, my mouse is misbehaving. Again, we got just some T-shirts, some mugs. I had to do some quick mock-ups so we could get the store online. But you can go in and take a look at the stuff that's there. Let's just take a look at the baseball cap, for example. And I'll share the tab, and I think it comes in different colors. I think can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. That's just one example. So yeah, there will be additional things there in the future, but we had to get something in there so we could get the store up and running. So yeah, we now have a merch store for those of you who are interested in TNEB merch, True North Eager Beaver merchandise.
All right. Wonderful. Good work. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Right.
But that's all I really have right now, to be honest with you. I got a lot of work pouring into my work laptop right here, so I've been trying to monitor as much as I could and not doing very successfully. Although I do have a 25-second clip here from 60 Minutes from last night. It's 25 seconds, so we should be able to show this without any sort of copyright infringement. And it's interesting. It's interesting what this gentleman has to say. And it falls in line with what we preach on this show. It's 25 seconds. Just give this a look. Oops, let me see if I can make it work here. There we go. And there we go. And here we are.
70% of America doesn't like their jobs. Somewhere around 20% hate their jobs. They're throwing the proverbial wrenches in the machinery.
Like sabotage.
Sabotaging their own employer. That's bad for human beings. It's bad for our economy.
You very clear, though, this is not charity, this isn't philanthropy, this isn't socialism. You are making a business case.
This is the right thing to do that also happens to be good business. 70% of America doesn't like their
And I'll
jobs.
tell you what that is. And what he's talking about, private equity executive Pete Stavros says giving employees ownership in their company is the right thing to do, and it's also good business.
Yeah.
It is. Anybody who understands how a company works, it's good business, because guess what? When you are invested in the company, when you have a piece of that company, you're going to put more of yourself into it to make sure that it succeeds. You're not working for the man, you're working for yourself at that point. It's the best way to do it. Not enough companies are doing it. But the ones who do are always incredibly successful. Because you're working for yourself. You literally have your own best interest in your hands. So yeah, I think that's interesting to hear that from, a private equity executive to say that. It's like this is very refreshing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I concur. It's good to hear it. Over the course of the weekend on Sunday, was National Red Dress Day here
Yes.
in Canada. It's a day a day of awareness for the issue of murdered and missing Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirit and gender diverse people. Often going through the acronym MMWIG2S. If you hear that, you see that. That's what that means.
Quite frequently, yes.
Yes. The national inquiry that we had found that Indigenous people are 12 times more likely to be murdered or go missing than non-Indigenous people. A red dress alert system would be active is something that has been discussed, and it's something that's similar to Amber Alerts. Call it a red dress alert system, and it's something that could be activated once someone goes missing. There's talks going on with regards to instituting this, and it seems that the government of Manitoba in particular is talking with the federal government about this. And we mentioned on our show a couple of times NDP MP Leah Gazan, who is one of the MPs spearheading this initiative, and she had passed a private member's bill. I think for National Red Dress Day, I think it is acknowledgement of the day, and it had gotten unanimous support, which is very rare for a private member's bill to pass in the first place and then pass unanimously. But she says that even though this needs to be done, it's the right thing to do. That even though it seems simple, we'll just put an alert system. Well, it's not that simple because some missing people don't want to be found as a result of either sexual or domestic violence, addiction, homelessness, or estrangement from their families. Um, but so she believes that Manitoba has the experience to be able to do this thoughtfully.
Hmm.
And that's because Manitoba is often considered ground zero when it comes to issues of missing and murdered women and Indigenous girls and two-spirit and gender diverse people, unfortunately.
Hmm.
The federal government is contributing about $1.3 million to support a consultation process uh, with regard to this to make sure that the complexities are ironed out. But there are systems like this that exist elsewhere in North America. Washington State has one, for example, and it seems that it is very successful. There's no timeline yet for when this will be active, and the Minister of Crown Relations says that it's the intention to have this system eventually be one that goes from coast to coast to coast. Now, that's in Canada. Was not aware that the United States had made this much progress as well, but the fifth as well in the United States is National Missing and Murdered Indigenous Persons Awareness Day. So I didn't know that they had gotten this far. The Department of Justice in the United States says that over 1 to 1.5 million Indigenous women in the United States have experienced violence over the course of their lives. The Bureau of Indian Affairs estimates that greater than 4,000 cases of missing and murdered American Indigenous people and Alaska Natives remain unsolved. The day in the United States has been recognized since 2017.
Mm.
Never actually really made the news up here. So yeah, I just figured I'd share it because we often tend to view ourselves as maybe being down the path of reconciliation a little
Hmm.
more than the United States. But the Biden government in particular has been doing a lot to try to make things
Yes.
right. But it's I don't know if the political system is different in the United States as it is in Canada because we don't hear very much of national organizations like we do over here. And I don't know if there's an AFN equivalent to the United States, for example.
I honestly don't know. But they are
Don't know.
making strides in the right direction, right?
Yep, yep. Because they had when we were talking about residential schools, they were talking about them too. When we were talking about some potential unmarked graves, it seems that that's the case in the United States as well. There's some stories going on, but it's not getting as much uh, talk on the mainstream national news there. But every now and then I've been listening, and it's
Hmm.
oh, so what's going on over here is going on over there as well. So that's kind of interesting to know.
It's good.
Uh,
It's
let's
good.
see what
It's
else do we
progress.
have. Yes,
Solid progress. And
yes,
progress is usually a good thing.
indeed. With regard to the uh, story about the arrests of the three people with regard to the plot to assassinate Hardeep Singh Nijjar, um, you might have, if you're on social media, you might have seen some clips that the prime minister was at a gala
Hmm.
uh, for the for a Sikh federation, called the Sikh Foundation Gala, and delivered a few words. Um, he proactively mentioned this and said that the investigation was important, quote, because Canada is a rule of law country with a strong and independent justice system. So um, that topic did come up. Um, it comes in the context, interestingly, of the Minister of Foreign Affairs in India. We've mentioned him before as well. Um, his name is Jai Shankar. He says that Ottawa is obsessed by trying to link the government of India to the death of Singh Nijar, that it's really a matter of domestic or internal politics here in Canada only and nothing to do with India. And it's merely a way for the Prime Minister to guarantee himself the sick vote with
Mm.
Canada prior to the election. So it's almost again like India has been taking some coaching from the People's Republic of China to how they publicly respond to these types of things. Um, he mentions the party in power does not have a majority in parliament, and certain parties rely on pro Khalistan leaders
Mm.
because in India, of course, right, they refer to them as terrorists, and let us not forget that India currently, right now, is in the process of an election. Right,
Right.
their national election, it lasts goes over like 6 or 7 weeks. They divide the country into certain sections, and they have like a vote in one section and then another section. You know, it takes a while in India. Yeah, but it's the largest democratic exercise in the world in terms of number of people involved. You know, there's
It's
over
a 6-week process.
6 week process, and it's like in every week there's like a million to a 1.2 million polling stations, and you know it's a big deal
Oh
going
yeah.
on. They have like a group of people that just travel around the country like for those 7 weeks, just manning polling stations in each area. Now, it seems that according to the polls going into the election, that Modi looks like he's going to win to secure a third consecutive term, which is very rare. I think it was only the second time in India's democratic history that someone will have won 3 terms. Um, but a lot of this big posturing as well, like for this party, Canada appears to be its favorite punching bag to be able to elevate itself in its own domestic relations. Um, so we have to, take these comments with a grain of salt. A lot of these from the government of India are for domestic consumption more than anything else during an election.
Hmm. Oh yes.
Right? India is still trying to convince Canada to extradite 25 people, most of them activists for the creations of the sixth state. I'm not sure how well that is going to work out for them now.
Probably
Uh,
not well.
yeah, considering what they have done. According to CP24, with regard to the arrests, 3 Indian nationals have been charged with the murder of BC Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in a killing last year that threw Ottawa's relationship with New Delhi into disarray. Police say they are investigating if the Indian government was involved, an allegation raised by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in the House of Commons last year. Quote, "We are investigating if there are any ties to the government of India," said Mandeep Mukher, who's an integrated homicide investigation team superintendent based in Surrey. Uh, yes, based in Surrey. Now, the 3 men had been arrested in Edmonton. Uh, but he says, however, it's an ongoing investigation and I don't have any information to provide on that matter at this time. Singh Nijjar was the president of the Gurdwara, uh, close to where he was shot. I never know what to say because I don't want to soft pedal it, uh, and I don't want to over dramatize it. But but I'm trying to find the judicious words sometimes because it's, like, he's not just shot; he was assassinated, right? Um, Allegedly. Nijar so was the president of his Gurdwara, and he also campaigned for a separate Sikh homeland in India, also known as Khalistan. He organized unofficial referendums around the world about Punjabi independence, and there was another one of those also this summer going on in Canada, which also around the time that all of this was exploding, one of these types of referendums, which made the Indian government quite upset
Hmm.
as well. So there was a lot of things that were uh, making them a little prickly around the time that all of this exploded. BC Gurdwara's council spokesperson Mominder Singh says that he and Nijar's family were briefed by investigators in Surrey about the arrests, and Nijar's children were very emotional. Quote, "At the moment, there is a bit of a sigh of relief in their father's murder," said Singh. "There's a bit of anger and frustration about why this had to happen in the first place, and then there are a lot of questions around India. Is this over? How do we go back into our community and have this conversation around is this safe or is this not safe?" Trudeau said in September that there was credible intelligence linking Nijar's killing to Indian government, touching off a diplomatic row that resulted in India suspending issuing visas to Canadians for 2 months. India has repeatedly denied involvement in Nijar's death. RCMP Assistant Commissioner David Taboul said police in Canada have been trying to collaborate with Indian authorities on investigations such as the Nijar case, an effort that began before his killing. Quote, "I'll be frank, I'll characterize that collaboration as rather challenging and difficult for the last several years," Taboul said. However, the RCMP is very committed to continuing to establish a working relationship from law enforcement to law enforcement agency, so we're going to continue our efforts. But it's been difficult. Police say the three suspects arrested in Nijar's killing, I will not give their names, are all male Indian nationals in their 20s living in Edmonton. Mooker said the men have been in Canada for 3 to 5 years as non-permanent residents, but provided no other details on their immigration status. Police say the three suspects are expected to be transported to BC by Monday, today, to face charges of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Gurpatwant Singh Panun is a New York-based Sikh independence activist who the U.S. prosecutors say was a target in an assassination plot directed by an Indian government official. That's when the United States had laid charges, and then all of a sudden we had proven international corroboration. This in a very, very, very concrete form. Some of our allies had come out before to back us up, but this really sealed the deal. He said the arrests were a step forward but only scratched the surface. "Shahid Nijar was my dear personal friend and a close associate," Panun said in a statement using a honorific implying martyrdom. "He was an upright individual, a peaceful man with a demonstrated commitment to community service. Canadian politicians of every stripe must stand with the Canadian Sikhs' right to peacefully advocate for Khalistan without facing any violent retaliation from the Indian government." Federal Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc said in Ottawa that he understands that members of the Indo-Canadian community and others, quote, "may still have questions or concerns," and he asked that they put their trust in the justice system. Quote, "Every Canadian has the fundamental right to live safely and free of threats of violence," LeBlanc said without taking questions, adding that his department will engage with community groups in the coming days. Quote, "We want to hear their concerns and work with them to foster trust and open communications." In a statement, the federal opposition Conservatives said that while they are glad arrests were made, the party wished the Canadian government could have foiled the killing of Nijar, as was the case in the United States, a reference to the alleged assassination plot there. Now that is a load of crock.
Mm-hmm.
That's a load of crock because the Prime Minister coming out with it and going public allowed our Five Eyes partners to come up and corroborate, which maybe caused some people that were involved in these plots to maybe take some type of action to change course, given that they were talking about it. And maybe that action was detected, which maybe could have led is one of the things that led to the arrests. We don't know. But this is a plausible hypothesis, for example. So them saying, again, we wish that they would have caught them before the assassination. Well, like the US did. Well, part of the reason the US did is because we did what we did. I don't know. Maybe if there was another country that was affected by this that maybe I've spoke out before, maybe we could have done something with that information. But somebody had to go first. It seems it was us.
Certainly.
Yeah. BC Premier David Eby said Nijar's killing had, quote, shaken the Sikh community in British Columbia, the larger South Asian community, and Canadians across the country. "I hope that today's announcement of charges against 3 individuals is an important step towards justice for his family and accountability to the whole community," he said in a statement. The World Sikh Organization of Canada said it welcomed the news of the arrest of 3 members of an alleged hit squad that assassinated Nijar. but the group said in the statement that it believes the arrests raise disturbing questions about the connection between India's government and criminal gangs. It is noted that the report by the Foreign Interference Commission says India uses proxies in Canada who work with intelligence officials in India and Canada. An interim report into foreign interference released Friday in Ottawa said Indian officials engaged in a range of activities to influence Canada's communities and politicians. It says India's interests in Canada related to the large South Asian community in the country. Quote, India does not differentiate between lawful pro-Palestinian political advocacy and the relatively small Canada-based Khalistani violent extremism, the report said. Indian officials in Canada have increasingly relied on Canadian proxies and contacts in its network to conduct foreign interference, the report says. Quote, it views anyone aligned with Khalistani separatism as a seditious threat to India. Targets of Indian foreign interference are often members of the Indo-Canadian communities, but prominent non-Indo-Canadians are also the subject to India's foreign influence activities. Now, the whole part about the connections between India's government and criminal gangs is really interesting because the foreign minister, Jai Shankar, when he was making all these allegations, was saying something about Canada not doing enough to stop gangs from operating on its territory.
Mhm.
But we have a bunch of hitmen who may or may not have been influenced, financed, hired, somehow tapped on the shoulder or linked together somehow to the Indian government. I would assume that these people would be parts of gangs.
One would assume.
So again, the Indian government saying, basically, if the narrative that seems to be developing holds true, is you didn't do enough to stop the gangs we influenced or financed or encouraged, so it's your fault. Yeah, that takes some brass ones. That takes some brass ones, Foreign Minister.
Oh, yeah.
Takes some brass ones. Stay tuned. Hopefully, this time it will be true that the Mounties always get their men.
Well, fingers crossed, right?
Yep. All right, Mr. Grizzly, do we have a show?
I believe we do, sir. I believe we do. I've been very low key today as I'm kind of tired. Had a little, early excitement in the morning and kind of coming down from that. And I'm only just getting my second cup of coffee into me now. So I'm kind of mellow today, and I've got a lot of day job work that is taking place with my computer to my right here. So I haven't been engaged as I normally am, and I apologize, but sometimes life gets in the way. We still managed to put a show together, so I'll count that in the win column. Unlike the Leafs, who are clearly in the L column. You know what? I watched that game, and it was like Boston tied it. They go to overtime. I'm like, this is not looking good. And the overtime winning goal was a complete breakdown in defense. They let Pasternak walk in and score it. I mean, it was brutal. It was terrible. It really was. And anybody knows me knows I do not cheer for the Leafs. But that was embarrassing. That goal was embarrassing.
Ooh.
Because, I just, the Leafs are still social distancing from the cup.
Oh.
I mean, it was a terrible way to lose because it shouldn't have happened. The defense was standing there with their back to the play, not paying attention. Pasternak skated in and popped it in the net. It was a nice goal, but it shouldn't have been. Anyway.
All right. Some quick tidbits before we go. It seems that the government has filed the necessary paperwork to unveil its long-promised plan to set up a registry of foreign agents operating in Canada, tentatively titled An Act Respecting Countering Foreign Interference. And so, according to Katie O'Malley from iPolitics, that appears on Monday's notice paper, courtesy of Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc. He's the cabinet lead for democratic institutions as well. Let's see, we talked about the budget bill. Yep. All right, so that part we have. It
Mhm.
seems that the leader of the New Democratic Party, Jagmeet Singh, has now come out and said that yes, he will be voting with the Liberals on the budget. Shocker!
Yeah.
Because he managed to get some
Well, remember,
concessions.
he forced them to do, and he forced them to do, and he forced. Of
Yes,
course, he's going to vote for the budget.
yes, exactly. He got some security, some additional provisions on preventing some clawback of the 200 disability top up by private insurance companies as well as provinces,
Mm.
because sometimes they will do that. Private insurance companies, if you have like let's say wage loss replacement insurance, if you get a stipend, then the stipend goes towards that, and and you end up with a zero gain, basically. Um, and so for that, and a couple of other things that he mentioned, that he said he got, and now he's okay, he's satisfied, he'll vote with it. But now his tough talk has turned to Polyev with I'm giving Pierre Polyev 48 hours to stop blocking the rights of women, he warned. If he doesn't, the NDP will force through legislation on free birth control. We will win this fight. Well,
Well,
of course, I don't know if you will force it through. I mean, the Liberal government is already voting for it with you, so it's like saying, like, my big brother over here is going to punch you in the mouth. It's like, okay, but yeah. So anyway, he's still on the forcing trip. So there you go. So those are the little tidbits, and yes. All right, kids and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember that sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really, really appreciate it when you do. If you would like to make sure that you do not miss an episode, you don't have to. Thanks to the Ray Girl. She sponsors our pod page. That's podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you go there and click subscribe, that will bring you directly to our pod page. And when you subscribe there, sorry, I doubled back there. When you subscribe there, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, we'll come directly to you. If you would like to support us in other ways, make sure that you make like Kit Elaine and go to our True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page. If you go there, we have some buttons for you. We want you to click them. Like, share, subscribe. 1, 2, or 3. Click 1, click 2, click 3. Hey, it makes us happy when you click. So, and that will help us to get to 1,000. That's our next goal. And if you'd like to help us in other ways, the QR code by Mr. Grizzly's Head should bring you to our coffee page, where you will find the Emergency Hydration Fund here at the Beaver Lodge, which is our fancy name for our tip jar. So if you would like to encourage us to do more because you like our product, well, buy us a cup of coffee, or a mug of beer, or a glass of Caesar, or a mug of hot chocolate. Makes us very happy. Just a little pat on the back and saying, good job, fellas. We appreciate it very much. Coffee, ko-fi.com, Eager Beaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. And if you go there, if you leave a little thing, a little something there for us, we'll be very grateful. Of course, the gift of your attention is the most important gift in everything that you do in terms of word of mouth and sending us stuff and interacting with us and sending us some content and ideas and letting us know what you think. So please do keep doing that. If you're listening to us and on Apple, please some likes, some reviews, some stars. That would be wonderful. And if you would like to write to us, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, or at trueeager on our Twitter, or True North Eager Beaver on Facebook. We have different ways, or right here on our YouTube page in the comments, leave us something. We try to read absolutely everything. Because democracy is something that you do. Oh, I almost forgot. If you live in Alberta, please, please, please do get involved in the leadership race. If you happen to be living in Saskatchewan or New Brunswick, you have provincial elections coming sometime this fall, so far, based on the schedule. So why not call your local provincial elections body and ask about volunteering at a polling station, for example? You never know. We need good people.
hmm
All right. From the Beaver Lodge, this is your eager beaver saying it could be a tough world out there. I'm tripping over my tongue today. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom for us, please?
I do. I gotta feed a milk bone to Miss Thing here. I do have words of wisdom, but they're not my words. They are the words of Chantal Hébert. This is from At Issue from just a couple of days ago. I think this was from Friday's CBC At Issue. And just look, some of the commentary about this is really kind of disturbing, but it's to be expected. People are saying she's being alarmist, and I'm like, no, I agree with her. Chantal Hébert is seldom ever wrong.
Mm.
So have a look at this.
There are a few consequences to that, including the fact that if you can just, if the federal government starts normalizing suspending rights that are in the charter at some point becomes a piece of paper full of good intentions. But one of those consequences for Mr. Poilievre is that he will be, as of that moment, under intense pressure from the large section of his caucus that is pro-life to do something about abortion and to use it to get around where we are at this point on abortion rights.
Yeah, and I think he saw that coming because apparently when he was first asked the question about which rights would he would support, it seems that he was that he would suspend. He seems that he was open to pretty much all of them, and then he's come out and said, "No, we only plan to do this with stuff regarding the criminal justice system. And that's it, nothing else." And if you believe that,
Yeah.
if you believe once you gave him a majority that he would stop just there,
He won't.
don't vote for people who treat you like you're stupid, or who treat you like they think you're stupid, because that's not true. Oh, Mademoiselle Fox, hello, my dear.
Hello, Mr. Fuzzy Beaver. Someone called you that in the chat. It was so cute. It was so funny. I can't remember who said it. I know you don't have much time left. Just how's your morning? Great show today. I loved it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. My morning is going very well. I have a dentist appointment later, which is why I'm in town. And other than that, just the cleanup and all that
not
kind
fun.
of stuff.
He's in Ottawa. He's in town.
I'm
Oh
a
yeah,
beaver.
you're still in town. That's awesome.
I'm a beaver. I have to take care of the chompers.
Honestly, going to the dentist is one of my greatest fears. I hate it so much.
Well, let's just say it's not necessarily the most fun time, but my hygienist is actually a joy to talk to, so it goes by pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, I mean, oh, sorry, I'm inappropriately dressed, because I've been up since 5:30 with the damn dog who got off the.
Told him.
Yeah, I know you did, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like this dog just. I'm like, well, she's gone. She's just gonna run away forever now.
I have an air tag on her. I can track
No,
her.
he got her back. He did an awesome job, and it's also our anniversary today of our first date.
Joy.
So, yeah. So all I want to do is like watch a movie tonight and just chill.
Well, I got to do a show at 9.
Oh, because I have to do a show.
Yes, I was going to ask you that.
No, that's important. That's really important. Yes. But you know what's also super important is that we're going to do soup night. I'm shamelessly plugging my show. Soup night, dudes and dudettes and soup. Douglas, did I just make you laugh?
Yes, you did.
What is it with you people in soup?
I don't know.
No, there's a lot of interest in this.
He has a fascination with soup. I don't know what it is.
So I'm gonna make I'm not gonna brag, but there will be a prize for the winner, which will not be me, but I will send a prize out. I'm gonna do a cheddar and broccoli soup and also a Manhattan chowder.
Which I won't be eating at all because I enjoy breathing.
So obviously there'll be a huge prize to the winner. So I hope that you can join. And I know some of the dudes in the chat are going to join and we're going to soup it out. We're going to soup it out. We're going to win.
So people are making soup?
Yep. We're making soup. live on cam.
So people have to make their own soup.
I have to rearrange things so I can shoot this.
You know,
Oh my.
you can open a can of Campbell's tomato soup. Like, nobody cares, right?
But
Like,
you're
it's
probably
just
not going to
like,
win the prize.
well, I don't know. I think it's not up to me. It's up to the fans.
Okay. So if you open up a can of tomato soup, you got to gussy that up a little bit.
Maybe some croutons, some cheddar.
Yeah, just tart it up a little.
Just tart it up. So some soup. We're gonna soup it out on Thursday, like nobody's business.
All right. Get your soup on.
Get your soup on. Oh, stop it.
All right, we gotta go.
Mr. Grizzly, are you doing an ASMR tonight?
Yes, 9 p.m. tonight I will be doing an ASMR mental health chat. I have a couple of things. Sorry, I'm just trying to fix my mic here. I just got a new mic arm the other day, and it works much better than the old one. I'm just trying to get it adjusted. So, yeah, no, I will have a show tonight at 9 p.m., ASMR mental health show, and kind of discuss a few different things and how, even though, I'm doing really well mentally, emotionally, I'm doing quite well.
Good.
Occasionally, for some bizarre reason, one minor thing will happen, and then that creates a cascade of emotions, and then all the bad thoughts come in from there. So we'll discuss it this evening and go from there. 9 p.m. on my personal YouTube channel.
All right. Mr. Grizzly, please roll the credits, and we'll be back with an Easter egg.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
All right, kids and cubs, Mr. Bear is quite happy with the show today. Just a little note for you. Jagmeet Singh is going to be in Halifax today because the Nova Scotia NDP is holding its conference about its annual congress about 1 year prior to elections. And he was just in Winnipeg because the Manitoba NDP did its same thing as well, which is kind of interesting because during the last election, he didn't have much to do. So I don't know if when the Manitoba NDP and the federal NDP are looking at reestablishing some types of ties or something, but he had no involvement in the election, but he is back for the Congress. So, hey, maybe that's a good sign for the party there.
Mm.
And last but not least, Madonna celebrated the end of her celebration tour in Rio de Janeiro with a free concert on Copacabana Beach for 1.5 million people, which is the largest audience for which she ever performed. This may be her last big, huge spectacle tour. You never know.
We were watching it yesterday, actually.
Yeah.
It was live streamed, so we were watching.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, it was a 3-hour show. I was looking at it. I go, this has got to be in Rio. Oh yeah, that's Copacabana Beach. I'm like, there's got to be over 1 million people there. 1.5. Yeah, that's a big crowd.
Big crowd.
Brazilians come out, man.
Yep. There you go. All right. Have a terrific day, everyone.
I have a quick clip for you, actually. I've got a clip.
You do?
3 minutes and 13 seconds of somebody who worked in the oil and gas sector. This is interesting. Have a look at this.
All right.
This is going to be a much bigger story than it is right now, because there's no telling where this blows up to. Trust me. This is Scott Sheffield, the founder of Pioneer Natural Resources, and he has now been accused of driving up prices by colluding with rivals by the FTC. As such, he is not going to be allowed to sit on the board of directors after the Pioneer Exxon merger closes. He's out. This is the complaint filed by the Federal Trade Commission. And in this complaint, they state that Mr. Sheffield tried to coordinate with OPEC producing nations and other U.S. producers to keep production low and to keep prices higher. Mr. Sheffield's response to this is that he was simply talking to OPEC because 2 times in the last 10 years, when the United States increased oil output by too much, OPEC would flood the market and try to put U.S. producers out of business. He was trying to get a gauge on how much the U.S. could produce before OPEC could do that again, or would do that again. Mr. Sheffield, you're not allowed to do that. That's against the law. I have read this whole complaint multiple times. One of the findings of the complaint is that over the last 10 years, it has been the United States that has driven all increases in oil supply globally. It is the growth of U.S. oil production that has driven all increases in supply globally. And increases in the Permian Basin has driven all U.S. oil production over the last few years. A lot of this report is redacted. In the redacted parts, as you see down there below, is one part where it's redacted. They talk about what Mr. Sheffield has talked about, mostly with OPEC nations, privately. Now, in this report, the Federal Trade Commission only mentions Scott Sheffield as doing something he shouldn't have. They repeatedly say he attempted to, collude with other countries and other producers. ExxonMobil has been completely cleared in this matter and made a statement that he will not be serving on their board at the request of the FTC. But this investigation is going to result in another investigation from the Department of Justice. I can guarantee you that. And we will see if anyone else participated in this collusion with Mr. Sheffield. Thanks.
So that's kind of a big story that's not getting the front page news it deserves. Something else about that. We had an investigation like that in Canada a bunch of years ago, but it never really amounted to anything. Now, I have a friend who used to work in oil and gas, and he told me point blank that each major oil company in Canada, when they would, say, purchase a certain amount of product to sell, like say they bought arbitrary figures. Let's say oil is $20 a barrel and they buy 10,000 barrels or 10 million. Numbers are irrelevant here, but $20 a barrel. Then a week later, the price goes up to $50 a barrel and their competitor has to go out and spend $50 a barrel. So what they do is they call the company A that bought it at $20 a barrel and say, please don't lower your price. We just paid 50 for 10 million barrels. Can you increase your price as we increase ours so we can keep our profit margin the same? This shit's been going on for decades. And every time there's an investigation, nobody finds anything. But it looks like this time they have a smoking gun on this fella. So this could be interesting. Could be interesting. I'll keep my eyes on this one. What does it mean for us? I'm not sure, but it's an interesting story.
The boss agrees. It's a little greasy.
It's very greasy. Very greasy. All right. I got to get out of here. I got to get to a meeting shortly. Have a great day. I'll see you.
Bye, everyone.